This is Life Strategies with Monique.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Life Strategies with Monique. I have with me today a guest by the name of Sherry Beam. Sherry Beam is currently a life giver, a motivator, and a co-author in a book that has just been released called Rise, Living Beyond the Bruises, where she is one of the co-authors. And today, Sherry is going to share with us her story of how she was able to survive an abusive relationship and some other tragic events in her life that have actually made her to be the woman that she is today. So to my listeners out there, today's show, please take your time to sit down somewhere and really sit down and get to a quiet place so that you can hear Sherry's powerful story on how she was able to get up again and move forward in her life. Sherry, welcome to the show.
Hello, Monique. How are you?
I am so good, and I am so excited to hear your story today because I was so uplifted by your story because so many women who have actually gone through what you've gone through, I know they would have given up. Because, you know, when they say when it rains, it pours, your story is kind of like that kind of a story where you feel like, God, is it ever going to end? You know, it just keeps coming and it keeps coming. But eventually we see the sun, and God has really shined himself on you in such a powerful way now. And I just want my listeners to be so blessed by your story. So why don't we just go ahead and start from the beginning and talk about your relationship and how you were able to really survive abuse. And I know abuse is something that a lot of people don't like to talk about, but it is a topic that a lot of women, even men, are actually dealing with and just really don't even talk about it because maybe sometimes they don't understand the signs, or they don't feel like they're really being abused, or they don't even understand the concept of what it means to really be abused. So go ahead and tell our listeners a little bit about your background and your story.
Yes, like you said, there are so many people that are being abused, not only physically, mentally, they can be abused, and sexually being abused. And it just happens so much to you think it's a norm in your life.
Mm-hmm.
As for me, when I got married, I married him not knowing his story. We have to know who we are first, and we have to know who that person is. Because if we don't know who we are, we don't know who we're attracting to us. And if we don't know their story, we don't know what types of things they've gone through in their lives and what kind of troubles they're going through. They could be mentally abused, physically abused, or whatever. And that brings on a difference in their character also, something that we don't know about. So instead of making those two stories combined, we have to know each side.
That's powerful.
I should have known myself totally because I was young. What did I know about? I'm 17. I met him when I was 15 years old. So what do I know about love? I don't know, but we think we know. And I didn't know him. I knew of who his mother was, who his family was, but I didn't know who raised him, how they raised him, or anything, and that makes a difference. When I was raised in a Christian household. My mother and father, I never heard them argue or fight. Every now and then they would, okay, Ira, my father would say to my mother, okay, just stop or whatever. No arguing, no fussing, no fighting. it was peaceful, basically peaceful. If there was anything going on, they sat down and they talked about it. And growing up, we always heard, when you marry, you stay married. And so that religious belief was one thing that helped keep me in the relationship. Because when it started turning bad, I would say, okay, mom always said, you stay until the children are grown, or, and it made me feel like I would disappoint God if I divorced or anything, So when it started getting bad, I would say, well, okay, God, you said, if we're joined together, let no man put asunder. So if you don't want anybody to put it asunder, I think you're going to come in somehow and you're going to change things. But that's not how it is. We make choices in our lives, and we have to realize, if we didn't get sound advice or counsel, wise counsel, we have to suffer the consequences that goes with that, with our choice. So at first I was married right out of high school. And I saw little things at first, little signs. He wasn't mean or anything, but I saw that he was in different affairs. I would catch him different times. He would have a mistress on the side somewhere. And God would bring it to my attention, some things, and I would always ask him about it. Oh, no, you got it wrong. That's my friend, or whatever, And years went on by, and it kept occurring. But, if we think we're in love and we're supposed to be there, we turn a blind eye to things.
Mm-hmm.
And after our sixth child, one day I sort of confronted him, okay. And he got angry with me. He didn't do anything that day. But another day I was standing in my mother's drive, and we had been waiting on him to come back, and it was after dark and the kids were sleeping in my mother's house. So I was standing outside peacefully. I saw a car go down the street, and he got out of the car and he walked back up to where I was. And little did I know, this is one of the ladies that he was having an affair with. And he thought I saw him and recognized what was going on, but I had no clue. I was standing out and I was just, daydreaming and just enjoying the night air. And he walked up and just hit me in my head. I almost blacked out. I could see stars. And he drugged me down a gravel high street. He drugged me down the gravel across the street in front of a church and beat me. This is the first time. And I'm like, my God, what is going on? What did I do? But it wasn't what I did. It wasn't what I did. And I didn't realize that at the time. And this happened more than once. He got to where every time he would come in, he would be angry about something in the street. He'd take it out on me. And it got to the point to where I would know when it was going to happen. I'd have the TV turned up, radio on, so my children wouldn't hear. One particular night he came in and I could see he was so upset. And I'm like, what is wrong? And it's your fault. It's your fault. It's always my fault about something, and I don't know what it was. He turned around and hit me so hard. He always would hit me in my head or my face. And I think he was I'm like, are you trying to damage my face so nobody will look at me or what? But I ran in our bathroom and closed the door. And he was banging on the door. And before I knew it, the top part of the door came open. He had broken the top part. The bottom part was still locked. He reached in and grabbed me by the throat and picked me up with one hand. And he looked totally like something. His eyes were red. They were like on fire. Something I'd never seen before. And I'm thinking in the back of my head, okay, I'm going to die tonight. My two oldest children, Angel and Junior, picked the lock on my door and came in and were screaming, turn my mother loose, turn her loose. He turned around and cursed at them. We never curse our children. He cursed at them and told them to get out. When they did that, he dropped me. He turned me loose. And my daughter ran. She called the police. They came and they had to take me to the hospital. I got to the hospital. They did x-rays. I had a fractured jaw. I had a black eye. And they asked me, they said, we know who did it, but we just need for you to say his name. And I was saying, okay, if I say his name, they're going to our house. The children are there with him. What's going to happen? You know, is he going to act crazy, and they're going to have to detain him and hurt him in front of the kids, or what am I going to do? So I said nothing because I was afraid. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to call. My mother had just passed the year before, and I was still suffering from that trauma. And I'm like, well, I can't abandon my children like that. So I said nothing, and I went home. I was terrified the whole week because I didn't know if he was going to come in a rage again or anything. And one thing he never did, he never said, I'm sorry. Not ever. He would say, I didn't mean to do that. Or, you pushed me to it. And I'm thinking, it's my fault. Is it my fault? Is it my fault? I didn't know. And all week, I would take a little bit at a time, some of my clothes, some of the kids' clothes, and I hid them in the trunk of my car. And when that Friday came, he had gone to work. I slipped out and I left and went to a friend's house because I was terrified. I didn't know what to do. After 2 weeks, I went back. I went back to retrieve some things from home, and I made sure he wasn't there. And if I had gotten all those things, I think I would have been gone and I wouldn't have come back. But as I opened the door, I looked around, I didn't see anything. And I went on in, and I was startled because he was sitting inside the house in the dark, waiting on me to come back. Mm-hmm. He didn't hit me or anything. He just started crying, saying that he didn't mean to do that. He didn't mean to hurt me. And he wanted me, and he wanted his children. I went back again. Mm-hmm. And it didn't stop. Same thing started again, to the point to where I felt I had to find a way to protect myself. I started taking karate classes without him knowing it. I had a 2x4 behind the door just in case. So now, from being this soft-spoken woman, I became an abuser myself, because I can say, okay, I was trying to protect myself, but I deliberately took classes to make sure I could try to do damage to him in any kind of way instead of leaving.
So you've now come from becoming a woman who can't defend herself and feeling as though she's a weak individual, feeling like I've got to do something to protect myself. Mm-hmm. And so now you say the tables have turned to where you become the abuser?
Yes.
Wow.
Because when he would come in, I said, okay, I can't leave. I have nowhere to go. My mother died. The year after my mother died, my father fell and broke 3 vertebrae in his spine. So he was totally paralyzed except 2 fingers. I had sisters and brothers, but I don't know if they ever knew it was going on, because, just like today, that's why we have to talk about what's going on. So many people are affected. We are affected. And like I said, he was the abuser. So there was something going on in his life to make him this way.
Mm-hmm.
I was being abused. So it affected me. But then it also affects the children. You can think you are hiding things from those kids, but they know what's going on. They may not see everything, but they know something is going on.
Yeah, and I think this is where we see those what we call generational curses, where it may be the father, and then it goes down to the son, and then it goes down to the next son, or even with the mother. We see generational curses where it could be an alcoholic mom, and then the daughter becomes an alcoholic. But we see the patterns that are being passed down or picked up because of what the children see. And I don't think people really realize how impactful what children see is on their lives, because they're going to replicate what they see, or they're going to replicate what's in their environment, and they become that because they're not being taught anything different. They're seeing so much of the negative, and they become the negative versus becoming the positive, because there's nothing there to retrain it or refocus it and to show them differently. So I see in your circumstances where we're now beginning to see that generational thing, or even the environment change an individual. And that's powerful, because the environment that you were in has now caused you to become the exact same thing. And how do you rise above that? How do you get a beyond those circumstances to realize, you know what, this is not who I am. This is not the way things are supposed to be. How do you rise above that? Because I think my listeners need to know that just because this happened and now you've become this, that you don't have to stay this.
Yes. I have, Lord knows, if it wasn't for God. I know a lot of people may say, well, oh, I'm not so spiritual, or you believe in something else other than God. Whatever you believe in, just know that your creator is there, because I know he was with me. I did not lose my mind. I tried to commit suicide at one time because I was tired. I was tired of being humiliated. I was tired of not being and not knowing who I was. I was tired of looking in the mirror and seeing someone that I didn't even know. I'm like, Lord Jesus, what is this? I said, this is not me. And this is not my life. This is not what it was planned for. I know you say in your word that you have a plan for me and that I have an expected end. So Lord, I'm looking for you, and I at one point I had gone in when I said I was tired. I had just at the end of my rope. I was thinking of my mother when she died. I was thinking of my dad, what he was going through. I lost a sister, and I'm still dealing with this man. The beatings aren't like they were, but like I said, I'd become someone else that I didn't even know. I started drinking. I started doing drugs. I was in a state of depression that I didn't know what depression was. A lot of people don't know that that's what they're going through. But it gotten to the point to where I said, well, okay, I'm no good to anybody, because he would tell me, you're no good to nobody. You know, you're nothing. You're not anybody. But I was the one that was taking care of the children. I was functioning. I was dysfunctional, but I was functioning, trying to make things as normal for the children as possible. Still even going to church. And I'm like, Lord, nothing's changing. I was going to slit my wrist and let him be the one to find me. And I said, Lord, if it's meant for me to die, let me die, because I'm tired and I can't do it anymore. I can't take it anymore. And if it's not meant for me to die, you take control. You wash me clean. You wash me clean of all these hatred, the bitterness, the anxiety. Please take it away.
Mm.
And I fell to my knees and started praying and crying. And I was down there for over an hour, I know. I had come to the point of surrender. We have to give it all to him, because the things that are going on, we can't handle in our little minds. We think we can. In our little minds, we have no clue. We have no idea. Sometimes we have to just surrender and give it to him.
Amen. And to my listeners out there, I truly hope you just heard what Sherry just said about giving it completely to God and surrendering, because God is definitely your answer. I don't know who you are out there listening to this story of Sherry and the abuse and how she ended up becoming an abuser, but if that's you out there and you're hearing this story, just know that God is there. And he wants you to completely surrender to him, and he can definitely change your life forever. He is such an amazing and such a powerful God that he can do anything. If you just give it to him, lift up your hands right now and just surrender your heart, your soul, your mind completely to him, and you can be changed too.
Yes, yes.
So Sherry, so now you have surrendered your life to Christ, and your life is now completely changed. You are a totally different woman now, doing some amazing things that God has led you on a whole new path of being a vessel of God, being in the ministry. Talk about what it is and how God is using you like right now.
Oh my goodness. He has shifted my direction so quickly. After I had been with my husband a little longer, I had prayed because I didn't want to dishonor God. Everything that I do, I try. I'm not holier than thou. I'm not perfect. I'm still on my journey, but everything I try to do to please him. And I ask him, okay, Lord, what do I do? Please let me know, how do I go about retrieving the rest of my life? Do I stay with him and you're gonna do what you need to do, or do I leave? I opened the Bible and went to, I think it's in Ephesians. It says, if the unbeliever leave, let him, because God does not hold us to bondage, but to peace.
Mm-hmm.
And that resonated so much with my soul. I'm like, oh, Lord, thank you. So I was able to please God. I was able to leave the marriage. And after I left, I went back to school. I paid for schooling. I went to dental school. God gave me the desires of my heart. I went to dental school and worked in the dentist office for over a year, and found out, okay, I'm allergic to the medications in the office. So I had to stop. But the Lord had put on my heart to write a book years ago. So he's brought me full circle right back around to it. But the book that I was going to write then was about the journey of going through when my youngest baby had gotten hit by a car. He was 11 years old. And Cooley was in a coma for 3 months. And they gave him no chances of living. And after the second week on life support, they told me we had to make a decision to pull the plug. One doctor out of 10 had told me, all I can do is tell you to pray. And that's the neurosurgeon, because what Cooley had what they call a brain shear. The car hit him so hard he was spun and his brain shifted in his skull. And he said there was so much damage, there was no way that he could go in to repair it. And he told me, all I can do is tell you to pray. And that's what I did. I prayed. I wouldn't let anybody go in if they were going to cry or anything. I told him, don't go in with any doubt or unbelief. Pray with him, read to him like he's coming home. After 4 months, Cooley finally opened his eyes. And we had to go through retraining him to talk, to walk. I had to body train him at 12 years old. I fed him through a G-tube in his belly. And the first thing he told me was, when he could make a full sentence, he said, Mama, you know God didn't let me die. He saved me. And I knew everything was going to be okay from there. Everything that I've gone through in my life is not for me. It's for someone else that has gone through, or that is going through. There's hope in every storm. I watched my child. They put him on life support in the middle of the street. He was dead already. And they put him on the life support in the middle of the street just to get him to the hospital. And we prayed on New Year's Eve. I had family all across the United States and in Germany. We all prayed, and people we didn't even know were writing in and letting us know they were praying with us in unison. The next morning, they called me. That's when Cooley opened his eyes. I believe in the power of prayer, and I know there is a God, and there's a reason for everything.
Yes.
And my son is alive today. He's walking. He's talking. He still has a little weakness on his left side because he was totally paralyzed on that side. And they said he'd never be able to learn or do anything. I want his rights to go back to school. They were going to send him to a special ed school, but I want his rights to go back because I felt like if he'd gone to a special ed school, he wouldn't progress, he would regress. And that's what we did. He won his rights to go back to regular school. And Cooley walked across the stage in 2001, and his whole graduating class stood up. And you're not supposed to say anything in graduation these days. I got up and shouted while he was going. They can't tell me I can't shout because I know what my God has done.
Mm-hmm.
So he's brought me full circle. Everything that I wrote about in the chapter of I Rise is because I know there are people hurting, people that are staying stuck and not opening their mouths because, like you said, the cycle continues. I remember back in the day hearing things like, whatever happens in this house stays in this house. You don't tell people what's going on. I would hear aunts and uncles or neighbors or somebody saying these things, you know? So that's what's still happening. But we have to go beyond that veil and tear that wall down because there's no shame in telling. There's no shame in reaching out, asking for help because we were not put here to be slaves to anybody for their own use. We're not supposed to be in bondage. We're supposed to be free. We're supposed to have peace, love, and joy. And we have to let the younger generation know because that's why I did this, because I watch almost every day someone dying from domestic violence. And it's gotten at such an all-time high. I don't even watch the news anymore. I just pray about it and I ask God to help find a way that we can help people be delivered.
Yes. Wow. Such an amazing story, Sherry. I mean, God has truly, truly shown himself strong in your life. And I thank you so much just for sharing your story today. I know it's going to bless so many people's lives. And to my listeners out there, I hope that you have been inspired by Sherry's story today, to know that there is still hope for you. There is still an answer, and that answer is looking up. That answer is God. All you have to do is surrender, submit yourself to him, and he will answer your prayer. So don't give up. Even if you're depressed right now, to that individual out there that feels like you're depressed and there are no answers, Sherry is a living testimony, showing you today that you too can be a vessel of God simply by just having faith and not being ashamed. Because being ashamed is exactly what the enemy wants you to do. He wants you to be ashamed about where you are and does not want you to reveal who you are in Christ. So don't be afraid today. So again, thank you, Sherry, so much for sharing your story today. I know my listeners were blessed. Congratulations on your book, I Rise, Living Beyond the Bruises. For those of you out there listening, make sure that you get your copy of that book. All of Sherry's information will be in the show notes. All how to get in contact with her website, her social media links will all be in the show notes. So please make sure you click on the show notes. So if you want to reach out to her, she's available, right, Sherry, for speaking.
Amen.
Amen. So again, thank you guys for tuning in on another episode of Life Strategies with Monique. Until next time, stay educated and empowered.
You've been listening to Life Strategies with Monique. Contact Monique Petaway at www.moniquepetaway.com or info@moniquepetaway.com.